Hi, let's get started on that first essay assignment. Essays are worth a lot of points in English classes, and we want to make sure that we have a good plan and go through the plan and do things right. So, to begin, your topic for Essay 1 is narrative arc. A narrative arc crosses stories or episodes of, say, a television show. A narrative arc has the same points as plot. The narrative arc points are determined in part by the protagonist. And here are the 5 plot points: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. This probably sounds familiar to you from junior high or high school or someplace. Exposition, the first part of the story. The exposition gives the background for the protagonist and the protagonist's state of equilibrium. Rising action. The action rises because the protagonist meets an obstacle. The protagonist wants something. The obstacle gets in the protagonist's way. Climax. The greatest point of tension in the story. You know it in the movie theater because it is when you have scooted to the edge of your seat and you hold tension. Some people hold it all over their bodies. Some people hold it in their jaw. Some people hold it in their fists. Some people might hold it in their hips or legs, but scooting to the edge of your seat, that's a good clue. Falling action is the point when you release the tension in your body. It may show how the protagonist has been changed due to the conflict and her actions or inactions. Resolution is the end of the story, the part that is needed to make the audience feel satisfied. It's the conclusion. Assignment requirements. We need an essay of 750 to 850 words, so you can assume that we have need for an introduction paragraph, and in the neighborhood of, let me see, 800 words is 3 pages, about. Figure 2 paragraphs per page. 2 times 3 is 6. So in the neighborhood of 4 body paragraphs, maybe 5, and a concluding paragraph. The conclusion is usually very, very short, but other than that, body paragraphs are normally half a page, introduction paragraphs are normally half a page or slightly less for your typical college paper. It's not an absolute rule, it's just, if you like, a rule of thumb, something to go by. The protagonist that you choose, you can choose Lulu, Marie, Nectar, Gordy, or Jerry. Only one of them. Nobody else. These are your choices. You must use the 3 stories specified in the assignment for the protagonist you choose. You must define and apply the terms from your textbook, the different terms for character and for plot, terms like protagonist and antagonist. You must come up with a thesis that argues for your protagonist as pitiable and dynamic. You must come up with topic sentences that prove together that your protagonist changes through the points of the narrative arc. Due dates. Essay planning due Friday, June 28th. Partial draft due the following Friday, July 5th. Completed draft due the following Tuesday, July 9th. 2 peer reviews due the following Thursday, July 11th. Final version of Essay 2 due the following Friday, which is July 12th. Cautions. Caution 1. Plot structure is not what happens. A common mistake students sometimes make with an assignment like this is to summarize the stories and fail to argue. If you find yourself making a list of this happened, then this happened, you are only summarizing events and you are not making claims about plot structure. Please avoid submitting a summary. Caution 2. Plot is not the meaning you take away from the story. The meaning you take away is the theme or themes. Another common mistake students make sometimes is to talk in the air about what the narrative arc means without discussing the bones of the stories. Sometimes students even write about themselves instead of about the stories. Please avoid submitting a journal or a diary on the themes. And caution 3, do your own work. Do not for anything you do for this class. Do not rely on anyone else's ideas about the novel. Example of a narrative arc. Here's my example, and you may not borrow it, but this should give you an idea of how this works. Lipshaw is pitiable in World's Greatest Fisherman. It's the first story in the novel. He alone does not know who his parents are. His half-brother King frequently beats him and always torments him, likely because Lipshaw reminds him of his mother's indiscretion. Lipshaw is sympathetic in the story Love Medicine. It comes much later in the novel. Lipshaw is always kind, patient, non-confrontational, and always tries to help people. He is also sympathetic because of all he lacks. He did not get an education, as others did. He was not trained particularly at any task. His innate gifts are that he can heal people, or so he thinks. And his desire to heal people also makes him very sympathetic. Lipshaw learns who he is near the end of the novel in The Good Tears, which changes how he thinks about himself and what choices he makes. So this proves that he's a dynamic character. He becomes confident, he faces his antagonist King in Crossing the Water, the last story in the book, and he outwits him. In a way, Lipshaw returns both of his parents to safety. I don't want to give too much of a spoiler alert, but I gave a bit of a spoiler alert, didn't I? Okay. Thus, Lipshaw's narrative arc depicts his growth into manhood, growing out of a difficult and uncertain childhood, learning how to be successful in life, and achieving acceptance as a full member of adult society. Your choices for a narrative arc. These are your people. You have the choice of Lulu, Nanapush, and Lamartine, and you would choose to study the stories The Island, Lulu's Boys, and The Good Tears to look for these ideas. Is she pitiable? Is she sympathetic? Does she change? And same questions for Marie Lazare Cashpaw. As you study the stories Saint Marie, Flesh and Blood, and Resurrection. Nectar Cashpaw. The stories Wild Geese, The Plunge of the Brave, and Love Medicine. Is he pitiable? Is he sympathetic? Does he change? Gordy Cashpaw, The Beads, Crown of Thorns, and Resurrection. Is Gordy pitiable? Is he sympathetic? Does he change? And Jerry Nanapush, Lulu's Boys, Scales, and Crossing Water. Again, is Jerry pitiable? Is he sympathetic? And does he change? So you get to pick one of those, and if you can answer yes to all three questions, then that's going to be your choice for your narrative arc. Questions to help you plan. Start by choosing your protagonist, and then search your first story in the series to answer these questions. What is the protagonist like at the beginning before tension rises? What is the character's problem? What challenge or challenges does the character face? What is the character's state of equilibrium before the tension starts to rise? Search the first two stories in the narrative arc to answer the following questions. How does tension rise in the second story for this character? What is the obstacle in the second story for this character? Who or what is this character's antagonist in the second story? And then for the third story, search the final story in the narrative arc to answer the following questions. Which story has the climax and the resolution? What is the climax and the resolution? What is the character's state of equilibrium by the end of this third story? What happens to the obstacle or the antagonist by the end of this third story? So if you can answer these questions, you might actually end up with quite a nice and full outline that you can develop your paper out of. And other ideas for generating ideas. Review your questions and answers above and see if the answers give you an outline. Free writing is a practice I always advocate. All you need is a timer and a pen, or a timer and a computer. Time yourself for 5 minutes. Just let your thoughts go, write as fast as you can. In 5 minutes you should be able to write at least 150 words, maybe 300 words, depending on how fast you write or type. But just get everything out as fast as you can. The key to this is don't stop, don't correct, don't read what you're writing, don't stop and think about it. Free write means whatever's happening in your head, you try to catch it on paper. Kind of like fishing. You're trying to net the fish. But to do that, you can't just walk over and grab the fish, right? You have to stand there and fish a while. You have to let the stream of thoughts flow past you. Go away for a while and come back, read what you wrote in your free write, and circle anything you can use. Pick something you circled, copy it down on the top of a new page or on a new screen if you prefer. You can review your book, pick a short passage from there that you want to write about, copy it at the top of your page or screen. Free write for 10 minutes, thinking about what you copied. Go away for a while, come back and read what you wrote, circle anything you can use, free write again for 15 minutes. You see how you can build and build and build. This process of free writing, it prevents censorship. It helps you to use your thoughts efficiently, and it makes the writing go a lot faster, a lot easier. Brainstorm or mind map, these might be practices for generating ideas that you are comfortable with, that you have used before, so of course, if so, use them again. Brainstorming, by giving yourself 5 minutes to make a list of all of the points that you could talk about in your essay. You would then review your list, select what to keep and what to cut, how to organize what you keep. You can actually make an outline directly out of a brainstorm. If your brainstorm turned out really good, you might practice it a few times and see what happens. A mind map, which is also called a cluster, it's also a quick way to get your ideas down, but not in list form. You write down your main idea in the middle of the page, and you write sub-points as satellites floating around it. Then you draw lines to indicate logical connections between points.